Let's wait for Karin. Okay, you can start, right? Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this opening first panel in this Festival of Photography. Today we will talk about gender and women photography mostly, but we will try to cover the theme and topic in many aspects of its complexity. So I have to welcome you in the name of the organizers of this festival, and thank you for coming and joining us today. And the way we together a few minutes ago actually divided this topic is into aspects that are definitely connected, and we will also talk about those intersections. But we can perhaps talk about more artistic aspect of women photography, and something that I may be wrongly called social aspect, but it's more broader social, political, economical issues that any artist really face today. So in terms of artistic aspect, I just named some of the questions, wrote some of the questions down. So is there such a thing as a gender-defined or gender-determined visual and artistic perspective in terms of photography, here specifically? Is there a difference between male and female work in photography, like the process of work? In the process of work and or in choosing the topics, the sensibility approach topics, and is there a difference in chosen topics and or structures of projects in photography? And lastly, if there is, and I think all of us will agree that there are some of the differences, what do women's stories and perspectives, the stories and perspectives of women photographers bring to photography, and in which ways do women sensitize the public for those specific subjects? On the other hand, when we go to the more social aspect of this issue, we can just look at the raw data, and it's always interesting to start with the data. So according to something called World Press Photo, around 30% is the number of the increase in the number of female photographers in the last decade. And we can talk about feminization perhaps of different fields that were traditionally more reserved for men. And this is, as you may all know, not reserved only for photography. It's, I think, the same in many different fields. But on the other hand, we have other data that says, like, it's from Women Photographers International Archive, that says that women make 70 to 80% of students of photography globally, but only 13 to 15% of professional photographers. So there is an obvious discrepancy between those studying and teaching for learning photography and then actually becoming professionally involved in photography. So what do those such data tell us, and in which ways are professional lives and work of women in photography determined by different social and political standards? How are things looking in different cultural contexts, how they're looking from country to country? We have here people from Serbia, but we also have guests from some European countries. And again, how do women photographers, and if they do, fight against those social obstacles, and how do they get on the market, in their fields, etc. So these are the topics we will talk about today. I will now introduce you to our guests, and I will do it shortly. There's a lot of us here. So here I'm just going by my list, not in the order they're sitting. So first we have Lida Bornan Engelbert, and I'm sorry, Michelle, if I'm pronouncing it wrong. Okay. She's a Norwegian and Algerian artist, and she works and lives in Oslo and in Berlin. And she is also represented by 7 Photo Agency that is based in New York. Okay. Then we have Karin van Gerwen. She's an artistic photographer, and she studied painting and monumental art, if that's correct in English, and she comes from Belgium. Thirdly, we have Ursula, let me try it, Rock. Yes. Okay. she insisted to not say rock. So she's from Austria, but currently living near Vienna. And she's represented by the agency, I must mispronounce this, Eisenberger.
Anzenberger.
Okay, that one. With the help of Zoom, we are today joined by Nina Mangalanayagam, okay? And she will talk with us using this. So she has Masters in Photography from the Royal College of Art and a PhD by practice from the University of Westminster. She's currently a lecturer in Sweden. I cannot pronounce this name of this, I'm sorry. And she's currently responsible there for a BA photography degree program. Lastly, not least, we have Maria Jankovic. She is from Belgrade. She's a photographer with the university degree in fine arts, and since 2002, she has working experience as a photojournalist in Serbia and international press. And currently she's working as an editor in weekly magazine Vreme. And we are still waiting for the last participant. I'm not sure is she late or she won't join us, but her name is Sama Knježević, and we will let her introduce herself when she arrives. So thank you for your patience. And we can maybe now start. So maybe let's start with this more intrinsic artistic aspect of the story. So would you say there are, like, when we talk about this, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Maybe we could start with Linda, if you have something.
What was the question?
So in terms of artistic differences, if there are some between women and men approach to photography.
I always find that question a little bit difficult because in one way, if I would say there is a big difference, then it could also be a bit scary because then they will hire a female photographer because she takes this kind of pictures, or a male photographer take this kind of pictures. So I would say no, there is no difference, but I think that every human take all their experiences when they photograph, and I think in general maybe female has some other experiences than men. That you can see in the topics, and of course also women have other access to some stories than men have. But we have to be very careful, so it's not like, oh, female photography is all about feelings and the male, because then I think we go into a kind of a dangerous path.
So do any one of you have to add something about when you talk about those different experiences? What would you say that it's somehow intrinsic to women that maybe influence the sensibility of your work?
Well, I think also education takes part of it, because in a lot of countries, in Belgium, I was in a girls' school until 18 years old. Now it's changed, the girls and boys are mixed. But when you have girls together in a classroom and boys together, you get two different kind of cultures. And I think you take that experience with you as well.
Okay. So maybe for more of a journalistic perspective, how do you choose which topics would you like to be working on in your professional work? Do you think it is something connected to your gender or the approach?
Okay, I try, yeah? What will I say? Oh, I forgot. I'm too nervous, sorry. What was the question again?
When you're working in your everyday work you said you're a journalistic photographer, not news, but more
magazines, yeah. You have more time for magazines,
so do you think that your maybe women's sensibility, if there is such a thing, influence which topic would you like to work more on? What would you like to cover more? How do you choose?
No, you have to split it, yeah. When I'm a journalist, yeah, then I have clients and they give me the jobs, yeah, the magazines or so. So for the terms, it's not or for the topics, it's not my influence, yeah. But for the free project, yes, yeah. But they take me, or wie sagt man, they book me as a photographer because I'm a woman sometimes, yeah, because there are some very sensibility topics or so, yeah, and some special scene, yeah. And that's also what I prefer. I prefer scenes where I go into it. Yeah. I don't know, my project I exhibit here is a BDSM project. Yeah. And this is a scene with codes and language and so. And I think I don't know. I don't like gender rules, yeah, but I think only for my individual person, as a woman also, I'm more sensitive to go into such a community or so, yeah, and they are not so afraid of me, so it makes differences, yeah, but because of the socializing of the society where you live in, yeah, and what experience people made in their life, so, yeah.
Maya, would you like to add something?
In general, because I also work on both, I make my living out of the photojournalism, and definitely it would be much harder to live without those jobs where you are also assigned to make some stories which are not yours. But I also have my own projects which are very artistic, but they do come from documentary. From the original stories, most of the cases. But I think that this female experience is actually why we are more sensitive to some of this, and why we can approach more easily and understand some of the stories that are connected specifically to women. So in the Balkans, the life of women is quite. There's not too much philosophy, and I wouldn't say also sensibility too much. It's like down to the ground, basic survival. There's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and I think that in these situations you can just more relate and be more careful when you work with them. Also, when it comes to this violence, lately I became the photographer for this, because it's really hard to illustrate these stories in some new ways. And when I worked with some of the journalists, they were really, really happy that I had this artistic background and my own personal approach to these topics, so that I can, with them together, develop also for the magazine some illustrations like this, which are not standard, I would say not stereotypical. Like we have to find a way, like if you remember the Petnica story, this was really difficult to do, but with a girl journalist and me, we found this kind of way how to illustrate this story.
I must say I also agree with you, because I've been working a lot with Muslim societies, and of course me as a woman get the easier access and can get very close to like female issues. And it's a bit more closed, like with the male. So, yeah, it gives you a different access as a woman. I'm just sometimes afraid that it's also important to say that women can go to war zones and that we could do like typical male-dominated. And maybe it's even going to be better because we have like another point of view on the story.
Nina, would you like to join us now?
Yeah, that would be great. Hello. I wanted to add, so I'm in the art field, or the academic art field of photography, but I wanted to think about this emotional aspect maybe, or if women deal with subjects that are more emotional or more personal. And I think actually that you could say that some women who have a specific agenda, who come from a feminist background, or follow a feminist tradition from maybe the 60s and 70s of making the personal political, actually use the emotional as a kind of counterpoint to this main objective voice that we've had in kind of literature and in visual arts. So I think that can be quite interesting. I'm not saying that women have a and thinking about motherhood, and thinking about the kind of stories that are told around motherhood that have maybe been stigmatized and have been kind of labeled as something that's or like not the kind of proper subject matters that have been made really strong by female photographers recently. People like Susan Bright, for example, curated an exhibition. Lots of kind of women come from different perspectives that have been really interesting in that field. And I think that also shows the kind of position that lots of women are in, that they have to make work in a position that they might be in. Now we will have different cultural context, but at some point in your life, possibly, you're in that confined space of motherhood and that subject matter that's possible to you. So, two points.
Thank you, Nina. So, as we can maybe say that if we add another lens on our camera, and it's a gender lens, right? Maybe we can talk about advantages, but also dangers of adding such a thing. So if we talk about, when all of you mentioned a few advantages, so there are things like positive discrimination that can be very helpful, but also potentially harmful in a longer distance. We can talk about sensitive subjects, or even culturally sensitive groups, and etc., where it's more like easier for women to approach and do a story, and of course photograph. But on the other side, there are things, and I think you mentioned it, that women can become closed in those topics, and then we have this type of issue: should women only talk about women questions? So should women only do traditionally women topics? And so do you have, yes, that's what I talk about. So how do we balance this new very popular gender approach to everything, so we can have women photographers doing something that would be more, excuse me if I cannot find a better word, but more universal topics, or topics that were traditionally male? Anyone really?
I think in general I don't think about my gender when I find a story, or if I work with my artwork at all. I know we're having this discussion, but also, for example, when I was part of Seven, like the first thing the newspaper wrote was like the first female photographer in Seven. I'm like, why are you saying female? Like, I can also be like kind of irritated when they put the female label on me, because I think my art should be seen like outside of like the gender box in a way. I know that this was maybe not answering your question, but yeah.
Yeah, 35 years ago, my teacher asked me, he said to me that I had to paint more female. And now 35 years later, and I still don't know what he meant. I think you have to take your message, you have to say what you want to say with your pictures, and everybody looks with his own background to things, and that's the most thing. That's not a female eye, that's not a male eye, that's the eye of the person, of the photographer, and I think that's the most important thing. And socially, you have more, you can go to topics that maybe sometimes are more difficult to approach for man, and the other way around. There are also topics where men can easier get access to. But it's not the eye of the man and the eye of the woman. I think it's the eye of the person who is behind the camera.
I think. I'm sorry.
Can I say something?
Sure, please.
I'm totally right with you. Yeah, totally right. But you say something about the motherhood. Yeah, and for me it totally changes when I get the mother. Yeah, also the topics. Yeah, I have one project called Motherhood Sculptures. Yeah, I made still life pictures. Still pictures. Yeah, from things, objects which were new in my life as a mother. Yeah, a lot of medicaments, strange medicine things for the baby, whatever, yeah, really strange things, yeah. What's the word? Staubsauger? Staubsauger.
Bird sugar?
Bird sugar? Where you do the...
It's something you give when oh no.
No. No, it doesn't
Vacuum
matter.
cleaner. Vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. For the nose, you know,
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you know this,
Yeah.
something like this.
Yeah.
And I make pictures of this, and what should I say? I always fight with the rule of motherhood, yeah. But this was so necessary for me to make this because it was part of my life at this moment, yeah. And I cannot understand why it's so medicine, yeah, the motherhood, yeah. And then everything changes because I was not at the moment Ursula Röck, a woman, a human being, a photographer. Yeah, I was a mother. Yeah, and you must work and handle with this topic. Yeah, you can't do it not. For me,
No,
yeah.
but plus you need to be this mother 100% of your time. It's really difficult to squeeze.
Yeah. Society always do it like this.
Yes.
Can I have a comment on it? I have never seen your work, and so it's nothing about you. But I always I know a lot of photographers making stories about being a mother, and I'm so. Why isn't there any man making these stories? Because I've seen so many women do it, and I've been in a lot of juries sometimes, and it's a lot of women working on this subject, and I understand that it's a big thing. I'm also a mother, and one of the first questions I got when I was a photographer, are you going to photograph the motherhood? And I said, no, I don't want to do that. It's not me. So it's also we feel different about it, but I really wish to see some parenting stories and or making art of being a parent as a father, because there's so many female stories about it.
Yeah. The photographer, the male photographer, only make the pic for Facebook with the baby, and then they get 600 likes, and when I do this, I get 50 likes. So, yeah, and this is what the male photographer do. What I see.
I hope not all.
I don't know a project.
I think that simply in their life this is not. I mean, of course it's a big thing when you get the child, but it's not the same. It's really it was your body that split it in two, and that's for your identity. It's a difficult moment. So of course that you are going to relate because you are kind of lost professionally. I was a freelancer, and in that time when I got the baby and had this maternal leave, all my clients disappeared. While other women, maybe they come back to work, but I needed 2 years after that to regain back my clients and to start working properly. And you think you're some forgotten person over there in the cloud. There was Maria, but she's now a mother. So it took a long time actually, and I mean, okay, I had this viral picture with my baby, but which put me back on the spot. But in general, the clients disappeared. It was very difficult. But the men, they don't simply have this. I mean, he didn't have an identity issue nor a problem with job or anything like that.
But I think it's so important what you're saying that, because one question is why are there so many females in the art or photography educations, and there's so male dominated in the work? And I think it comes back to that, because a lot of females are choosing a more safe pathway, because many of us are going to be parents, and because I've been really thinking about this issue, why is it still so male dominated? But I think as soon as we get mother, we lose the jobs. It's going to be hard, and most of the time, it will be the female that kind of pulls back.
Yes.
I think so. This is a great transition to this more social aspect of the story. So, although maybe you, while creating, are not necessarily always putting that women identity first or even at all, it is individual, as we maybe conclude, but the society always does, right? And the scene through which you represent your work, the people who buy your work, the employers who give you jobs, it is an important aspect of your identity that even if you do not take it into account, it doesn't play in your artistic work a big role it plays in the society. So you mentioned, of course, the theme that is, I don't think it's really necessarily exclusive for photography, like women in market and motherhood are the issues for any woman really who wants to work. So, but maybe we can talk more about education, as Karen said. Maybe Nina, who is working actually as a professor, can add something to this, and then we can continue another topics. But just before we continue, actually, Sanya has joined us.
Hello everyone, sorry for being late, I was at the assignment.
So I think maybe we can squeeze a bit. Yeah, just, sorry for the disturbances.
It is my great honor to be present tonight and to be among such accomplished female photographers from other parts of the world. My name is Sanja Knežević. I am a documentary photographer from Belgrade. I work mostly on my documentary projects. Some of them are long-term. I won 6 times Photo of the Year in Serbia. The most recent award is from the previous year at the violent protests, where I took a photo which marked previous year at Beta Agency Photo Contest and Press Photo Serbia. I'm also mother as Maria, so I'm very. I know the situation, how it's difficult since you become mother, because you are in a way punished because you are not hired, and we have to invest additional effort to get a job, to be on the surface, and to be recognized.
Thank you. So please feel free. We kind of decided that we will just, everyone will talk whenever they want, so it's not okay.
Maybe I'm the only one who's not a mom.
Meaning,
so
not photography either.
So maybe, what I notice is that sometimes I teach also in school, and I have a lot of colleagues with children, and they always have to manage it with the children to come to meetings, or it's always difficult. But on the other side, I have a husband who does the wash and irons and cooks if he wants. Most of the time I cook, but in 30 years I did not turn on the washing machine 10 times. I don't know how it works actually, and when I say that, everybody is shocked because it's not normal that a woman does not wash and iron. Sorry. So it's my husband irons my clothes and he washes my clothes, but even the wives think that's strange, and it's just a mindset from a woman, and I think that we have to change these things, because if we always take all those jobs, you cannot make an evolution, and that's a problem from the female themselves, I think. And I always like to shock people, and when I say that in a company with men, they always say, "Don't tell my wife." They always are afraid that they have to do had to start ironing and washing. But that's
lazy guys, they call this tradition.
Yeah. I have full support of my husband for this domestic work. However, children still want mother. Mother is priority, so we have to have another. We have 2 jobs. I mean, as a mother and as a photographer.
Would maybe Nina or anyone of you maybe add something So all these problems that we're now talking about, as I mentioned before, can apply to other fields as well, especially in public sphere and women in public sphere, right? And domestic work, especially when it's complicated and joined by motherhood. But would you say there, so by photography being for such a long time male-dominated sphere, would you say there are some differences when you between like photography and other fields? Like what would you find as photographers as well that is wired this data? Like this, you mentioned a few things. Maybe Nina, from your experience as well, can add something.
I mean, I think it's problematic in lots of ways, the history of photography that students go through looking at as they can photography, and I think partly going male-dominated, white, Western male-dominated view of history also affects students. And then, as an example, in my own BA, which was 20 years ago, I was told by my teacher that if I wanted to make self-portraits, I needed to know what I, as an image, something. I was A woman, and B, Asian. And so I kind of think that women kind of start from that position of already being a subject in photography, and that's complicated. I also wanted to add that also in the 20 years that I've been either in education or teaching photography, there have always been a dominance of women in the courses. But as you mentioned before, finding them, for example, teaching in London for a long time, I was at one particular moment in May in London wanting students to go and see major shows around the galleries, and I could only find two solo shows by women in the kind of major art galleries in London at that particular point of time. So I'm not saying that's statistics, but it was quite telling of that when you get to kind of a kind of higher level of professionalism, the women were disappearing or not given the same opportunities.
Thank you, Nina. Linda?
Yeah, I also see like a difference, for example, in photojournalism, I still feel is very male-dominated, and in more like artistic practice, or as an artist, I feel like they are equal with women and men, but the topic with artists is that if you see the buyers, like still female art is not as on the higher level as with men. Sorry, my English went very bad there. But I mean, like the art that gets bought is most from men, and you can also see that I'm from Norway and it's quite like gender balanced. But even in Norway, it's like a huge gap, like from the buyers and who buys from the museums and the exhibitions, and the males are on a much higher representation.
I might have a couple of concrete ideas why this is so, at least in this area. First, here the market of selling prints, for example, doesn't exist at all. So I don't know if maybe just a few male or female artists can live out of this. I don't think that this really sells. We have only one gallery that deals with photography. And on a couple of other galleries, they occasionally have photo exhibitions, but the market is for the art photography is quite small. So actually, if you want to survive and you come from this percent of the girls who finish the university for this, if you want to stay in the photography, your logical next step will be to move to the press, because this is where you can have a bit of money. So when you move to the press, you can choose. In this, for example, in this country, in this moment, because the media are quite closed and under oppression of this dictatorship that we have, so you can choose from the daily magazines. In the daily magazines, you are going to probably have between 5 4 or 5 shootings per day, which means that you're going to come back home completely broken. If you're 1.60 m like me and you have all the equipment carrying like your colleagues who are 2 meters high, it's just not the same physically. It's also more difficult for us. So we are not ever allowed to complain about that because this is our equipment, but it is one of the things. Okay, you can choose Leica and it's going to be a bit lighter, but it's not going to do your job. It's not for the daily press. Then you can choose a couple of magazines. Over there, the magazine and the salaries are going to be very low, so you need to find additional clients if you want to work like this. In that constellation, if you have a family, if you, I don't know, you simply are not going to have time or very few time to make something on your own, which again you're not going to sell. So it's that kind of struggle, and I think that after a couple of years, when the girls try to do their jobs like this, it's going to be very, very difficult for them to continue. Yeah. So maybe we somehow lost them on the way. Yeah.
Can I also two things? Okay. Corona. I have to say 2 things. One is I think it starts earlier. Yeah. When we talk about magazine photography or newspaper or documentary photography, yeah. Documentary photography or reportage photography is not art for me, yeah, it's for the magazines and so, and it begins earlier. I see a lot of women which they don't work in this area, yeah, in the documentary. They work with children, they work with wedding couples, they work with something like this, yeah, because fashion, yeah, because they think for themselves it's a woman topic, yeah, and so maybe they are more successful in this because they have these woman feelings. I don't know, yeah, but this is one thing, yeah, to go, I don't know, in a country where there is it's a big topic, go into a war or something like this, yeah. It seems to be that the women don't do this, but I don't know if you read this, yeah, that most of the war photographers are women. So maybe you have to research it. I read this, yeah.
Where did you read this? Can I have a link?
I can search it and yeah. So maybe we are not so big in presentation also, yeah, that the world doesn't see, yeah, that we don't have the big penis and we are also good. I don't know, yeah, maybe it's this, and then we go into the family photography, so yeah, and with really low prices on yeah. Women. There's also one point. Yeah, the price of the women is also always lower than this than from the man. Yeah, so I don't know what happens with us that we can say a good price. And the other thing is in documentary photography in Austria, at the press houses. Yeah, maybe the chief journalist is a woman. Yeah, but the upper chiefs, yeah, are always men. Yeah, from the press house, they're always men. Yeah, there's no other one. There's no women. So a friend of mine and me, we try, but it was before of the pandemic, so we don't do it. It's good. So we try to make a magazine only with women, but not with women topics. Yeah, and one moment. Sorry. What would I say?
You try to make a magazine for women, but not about women.
Genau. I forgot. It was not easy to do, yeah. And we want to make this because we feel that we are not represented in the topics in the media, yeah. Because we tell the stories in a different way, yeah. Maybe we don't have different topics, but we tell them different, yeah. So that's why we try to make this, but we were not successful. So because it's not easy to work with women for me.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's very
In a group, it was not easy.
No?
No. They always look for a chief.
I must say I don't know if I agree with you that females tend to go to family and family pictures, because I feel in general there's so many accomplished documentary photographers, and we're in a time right now where we have a lot of females out there working. I think, of course, when it comes to war photography, there's still more males, but I think also, for example, the statistic that you have from the World Press Photo is also about, I know that it's still male dominated, but it's also about a lot of females are not sending in their pictures to the contests. So it's, I think it's about like feministic like history, that in general like females feel that they need to prove more, and that we kind of have to be perfect before we're sending in something, and male have like a lower level for sending in. So I think it's also about like looking at the structures. It's about like looking at the structures in newspaper. Are they like thinking about gender equality? It's also about like the contest to have like equality on the in the jury. And it's also like we're doing this experiment in Norway now, that we're gonna run a workshop for females, so like we're 4 women doing it, that we're helping to edit pictures before sending in to Picture of the Years. And it's a free workshop, and it's not about the females being like, that their photography is not so good. It's really about getting them to send in. Because I think also as a woman, that's something that we can do, like to change the system, is to really say yes to everything, send into competitions, like really feel that we're good enough.
Be cool. Yes, Nina, please.
I also think it's worth highlighting that there are some really great initiatives at the moment that maybe, I mean, I mostly have been in the UK, so that's kind of my context, but there are some kind of groups like Flash Forward, run by Farnham University, or Women in Photography in Royal Photographic Society, or this Firecracker Award that's run by Fiona Rogers. Like these kind of initiatives that are trying to lift up the visibility of female photography, because it's, as you're saying, it's not that it's not there, but it's not being made visible. And so I've had co-lecturers with me having 3-hour lectures on landscape photography, and not mentioning one single female photographer in that lecture. And then excusing oneself by saying that it's hard to find those. But that's maybe because one is looking for a certain kind of landscape photography, or looking at those that you already know. And so what Royal Photographic Society, for example, was doing with women in photography was to try and make an extensive list of female photographers. So when you get lazy and you can't look for your own research, then you can look at that list. I also think that social media is doing quite a lot. I think a few years ago, the photograph festival in France was very male dominated, and there was a lot of social media outcry from female professionals in the photography industry. And as a consequence, I think it's been radically changed this year. Well, last year. So I think there are things happening that are actually exciting in terms of kind of building and kind of connecting female network of lifting each other up and supporting each other's work. And that's not just on what one would call female topics, but just this female working in this field.
Thank you, Nina. So before we include your questions, would anyone of you want to add anything more?
Yes, well, I think also that the problem is, particularly in Serbia, we live in a documentary photography province, so we cannot compare with Norway or any other developed country. So for us it's much harder to be noticed, to get a job, to be hired, and to make living with photography. So I would say that's the biggest obstacle for Serbian women photographers. And other problems we share together. Yeah.
But the Serbian market is quite small. I mean,
say
we
there
don't
is
have
no
a big
market.
population, and we have a poor population. So even in photography, it's that actually counts.
Yeah.
What do you think could change if you had like a wish? Like what could change the structures for female photographers in Serbia?
I see only from foreign country if it would be hire more presented to get a spotlight of us in a way, because it's very difficult from this place to be noticed as a female photographer.
But it's funny because my agency here, Anzenberger in Vienna, always push photographers, male and female, from countries like Serbia, Bosnia, Hungarian, and something like this. And I always think, hey, I live in this town, please, see me, because it's so trendy, it's so modern, since 20 years, 30 years, I don't know, in Austria,
in
Vienna.
In the Anzenberger agency, but I got maybe one job for 2 years or some.
Yeah, this is the economic side. Yeah,
but it used to be
before
this Corona. Or, I used to be, and I'm now in Life agency. But because of COVID, there is no job for photographers. I mean, I understand the situation. So even with that, having in mind that I'm part of some agency, I can't rely on them. Yeah.
But it's a different field. We don't do it. We have to split the economic photography and the art photography. Yeah, there are two different fields for me. Yeah, totally different. Also the people and so on. Yeah, and I spoke about this.
Okay.
The art one. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But what do you mean? Do you feel like it's trendy with the representation? What do you mean with that?
No, in Austria it's trendy to have pictures from the Ost states, from the nationalities.
But don't you think, in a way, I don't like the word trendy, but it's okay, but I feel in general that if we have more representation and the world is changing a bit now and it's in a positive way, I think it's very, very good that we're having representation from more countries than before,
sure.
You know what I mean? Yeah.
Sure, but the agency, don't change. Yeah, so she only looks into this side. Yeah.
Maybe there are actually two different questions, because I believe Sanja was telling about our domestic conditions in Serbia for people who actually live and want to work and live from their wages here in photography, and it's a bit of a different thing how many of our brilliant artists get to go to. And these are two maybe related but not the same questions.
And it's also like, because the world is changing a lot right now, and for me I think it's super positive, but I talk with, for example, a lot of male photojournalists, and they're so scared about losing all their jobs because we're really looking more into who's telling the stories now. So to now be like a white male going and doing all your photography in Africa is more problematic. We want the African photographers, but it's so many males that's scared about this position, and because everything is changing. But I think it's a very good change.
They should be scared.
But I think I think it's difficult for male and female photographers at the moment to gain a good living.
Yeah, it's a part of the global problem.
Global
problem, yeah. So maybe now is the time for you to join the discussion. So as you heard, there are opposing views, but some contested perspectives, and there are also agreeable stuff among all of you, I think. So please, do you have some comment or question, or just join us in the discussion? Nothing, then we will just continue talking with each other. Okay, so if that's it, we can wrap it up. Yeah. I'm not sure how long this was. We started and then I figured out. Okay, I don't know how long should this. I never asked. I'm sorry. That's my mistake. So it's been an hour. So I think we can wrap it up. Okay, great. Thank you.
Do I need a microphone or?
I don't know.
I don't know.
We can hear each other.
Because of the recording. I can be loud enough. So my name is Marko. I'm a photographer from Serbia, and I wanted to emphasize one thing and maybe say something a little bit controversial. So don't jump on me straight ahead, please. I'm one of the representatives of, let's say, the opposed side here, although the number increased as the Tribune went on. One of the things that I wanted to point out is that maybe in all of this I see one disproportion or the lack of understanding, because at some point, I know I didn't take it personally, I promise, but at some point you were discussing about male and female parents' roles and so on. And I don't think that, have you ever been on a trip where maybe male father photographers are talking about their emotions towards the profession and their children and how hard maybe it is for them?
No.
No? Yeah. It's logical because it's not something that's usually being discussed. But there is a potential that, and I think it's wrong, maybe it should. And then on the other hand, now we were talking about this perspective from the female side. But the majority of present people here, now it's changed a little bit, which I'm glad for, were women, again. So from this perspective, I see still like that things like this are, as a general narrative, are still perceived as that we are on opposed sides. In a way, so there is a female and male gaze on the photography even today. And I don't think that there is, I see that there is a lack of this communication between different structures of power in the industry, because industry is still male dominated, I would say. And this is maybe where I can see and define this problem. I think that many more people of the opposite, you know, I would love to see here 20 male photographers from Serbia listening to you, because then they can understand some things, and especially people who are in position of power, for example, editors and people who are really deciding on the profession, maybe not in Serbia, because here it's irrelevant, as you understood, we don't have really the brightest situation in these terms, but in general. So I don't know what you, maybe I don't know if my question can be specific, but what do you think about this? Is there a lack of understanding in general? Because my take on things is that this narrative where there are opposed sides, in this term, it doesn't contribute to the solution, it just deepens the gap. So, thank you.
Nina, did you want to answer? No, Rita just pointed at you. She was like, let Nina do it.
I could answer a little bit about the perspective of emotional fatherhood, and I think there are brilliant photographers working on this theme. And I think there's one, the Swedish one, which I now cannot remember the name of, which annoys me. But I would also like to add that the exhibition that I mentioned before, curated by Susan Bright, the theme was motherhood, but not all photographers were female. So it wasn't only a female perspective on motherhood, and I think that's important to mention, that included male photographers making work on motherhood, their own mothers or other situations. So I wanted to add that. But I also agree with you, and I think not just when it comes to having a topic that deals with female photography or questions like this, it's very often that the audience will be female. And the same if you go to a conference that's on family, and 90% of the audience members will be female. So I think that's an interesting question to ask. Like, how do you try and ask the question differently so that it will reach a wider audience, maybe?
Well, if you go to a where equipment, photo equipment is sold, then you see 90% of the visitors are female, are men, and the females are in front of the camera on such an occasion often. And I think, yeah, that's the culture and the society. It makes how many chances of a female gets, and I think that there will be in our society. It maybe will take 100 years before it can be equal. I made a series of pictures of education 100 years, and the first 60 years the girls were educated to be a good wife for the man, and that makes them still unsure, and that makes that they're not coming standing for themselves, and always shy, and like Linda said, not good at get themselves low, thinking they're not good enough, and that maybe that will take a lot of time in our minds to say when we are equal in every kind of thing. I think.
I was just like wanted to comment on the last question, because I'm also thinking that because it's still male dominated who's hiring photographers, and also I don't know with curators anymore. I feel that's kind of equal, but I think we need to. In Norway it's changing, and of course that's probably very different from Serbia, but that there are kind of rules for thinking about gender equality when you're hiring photographers, or that I think the people that's in power, that's where the structure needs to change.
I don't know if this exists in editorial policy, because really in this press field it's complete mess. So I don't really think if like anybody can do the job. I think that some of my colleagues complained to me from one daily magazine, daily actually newspapers, that they were instructed not to think anymore. So like you come, you don't even use your camera anymore. So what is the important is that you are the fastest. You take your tablet and then you make a picture with this tablet without thinking. I mean, it doesn't matter is it male or female, this is a situation, and they were instructed not to think what they're going to take pictures of.
That's make me very sad.
Yes, and it's just important that it's sent before anybody else. So, I mean, this is global situation, but when I heard that somebody, like a photo reporter was instructed not to think, then this is, so it's a complete mess, and I don't think that here they choose men or men, it's just whoever does the job can do it. But I wanted to say something else, because majority of my colleagues are the photo reporters, a lot in the field. But when I made an exhibition actually on the femicide, which was more artistic, but it dealt actually with the problems how we show the femicide in the tabloid newspapers, none of them came actually. And the photojournalists, they simply didn't come. Girls came, other men came, but my colleagues, they didn't come to this exhibition. It's something that Maria does, it's some kind of art. It's not they didn't come to me to reflect what I was doing. I mean, I was talking about their work. They didn't come to listen to me. So this is how I felt it. And I wanted also to note something else. I'm often on these feministic events. We have quite a lot of here, and it's widely supported by the NGOs. And there's always one question on these feministic gatherings, is like, are we going to include men or no in our issues? And the answer is finally actually no. They don't have this experience that we have. They simply cannot relate to some of our problems. They cannot understand us. I remember when it was a Sarajevo a workshop, some of these colleagues from Belgrade, they came to me and they said, but why is it just women? I said, oh my God, you really don't understand. You know, you are working in a totally male-dominated field, you didn't accept a female in your organization, you don't have it, and now you ask me this? I think that's rude.
That's why we still need the panels like this.
Can I just add something? I don't agree with what colleague Marco says, because it's not that I'm complaining, it's just the fact that women have pregnancy 9 months, and if it's 2 children, then it's 18 months. So for 18 months, it's totally off the work, and additional 1 year per child for maternity leave, for breastfeeding. So for example, the last year protest, which lasted for 1 week, I photographed while I was breastfeeding my baby. So I was rushing home to breastfeed my baby. So it is additional energy and exceptional motive to go to work.
No, I agree with this. I never said that it's equal and on the same basis, but some things are like they come naturally in terms that kids are more connected to female, to women, to mother than to a man. I didn't want to say to make any kind of equality in this terms. My point was that maybe it's not in this practical physical term, it's the same for the father, but there are father photographers. I mean, I'm a photographer and father, and in some emotional sense there is as well a sense of responsibility and the lack of time to dedicate to our children if we are not there, if we are on assignment. In this sense, I just wanted to emphasize how we don't maybe there is something, because this is something that we were discussing about, so that was my point. And sometimes there is a lack of mutual understanding on both sides, so that was the whole point. And I never wanted to say that we are equal in this sense, because of course at some point in their life, if women or photographers decide to be mothers, it changes their perspective and on life rapidly, of course.
But if man could stay at home as the same length as the woman, then maybe structural could change things.
That's true.
And maybe they can take care of the children just as good as the women can. Maybe that's an idea that we use from, or maybe I'm wrong in that, because I'm not a mother. I cannot feel how a mother feels, but I see my husband. I know that he can take care of a baby very good.
Okay, it's my time now. We need more positive examples from the men, from the fatherhood and so something like this. My man is a psychologist in children, so I have. It sounds strange, but I really have one of the best men. He stayed longer at home than me, But you say we are 9 months pregnant, but 2 years, my second baby I get with 41. 2 years, my body needs to be like before. All is damaged and so really all, and it needs 2 years to get hard and something like this. The bones and so. So also because of the equipment, 2 years I need someone who carry my things because my body is not hard enough. So there are differences. But I'm sure that a man can do the same things, give the same love, give the same food to the children than a woman. But it's in the brain of the people. And it makes so much difference. When I come here, I have a lot of pressure all the time, because people always say to me, you fly away, and what is with your, I have a baby also, and a 9-year-old boy, what is with the baby, who is carrying, about the baby, and when I ask a question, back, this was my experience, then I ask, what do you think, who is caring about the baby, or the children? The grandmother. And I say, no, there is another one. Who? Think about, the man. They don't think about this, in Austria too. There's no different, the whole world is not preparing to be equal. Yeah. And maybe it will never be because a man is not pregnant. I don't know.
Yeah, and actually on some assignment I went with my baby. I went to Roma camp with baby. Yeah. Yes, and to another town to work for some really respectful organizations. And I was the baby was 4 months old, and when I was in Roma camp, I gave my baby to the woman. I know they like babies, so I photograph like that. So
I tried that, but it's just simply not possible. I mean, I cannot be focused on two things. I tried a couple of protests, but like mild ones, but no. I mean, husband also coming, taking care. No, I just simply.
I mean, this was exceptional situation.
Yeah, no way. No.
But in this case, yeah, it's good for you as a photographer, yeah, because you have a short way to get into it, and so when they like the baby, yeah, so it's a positive thing, yeah. But it's hard to do. I also cannot do this.
It was organized everything by that organization to go there, but however, it would be, I think, risky to go on my own.
But I was also pregnant when I shoot the PDSM shooting, so yeah. It was strange for me, yeah, and it makes no different for the protagonists, yeah. They say, would you play with us, yeah? And I said, no, I'm the photographer and I'm pregnant. No, yeah. But I don't know. It makes no difference, yeah. It's your work, yeah, and you're still alive and you have a good feeling, so you work also as a pregnant woman or with children, yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to.
Yes.
We have 20 minutes until I think the opening of the. So please, thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your professional and private stories with us. So I hope we, I don't know, at least open some questions, if not answered. I mean, there are a lot of years in front of us in answering and finishing all this. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.